By the late 19th century, Cuenca's population was about 25,000, and in 1926, the population was around 30,000. The buildings were concentrated along the road we now call Bolivar, that runs east-west from San Blas to San Sebastián. Casa Sucre is an example of colonial architecture that was built in Cuenca until the 20th century. This one-story house, located at the intersection of the streets Sucre and Estevez de Toral, was a simple house with simple construction, and is an example of the building style of houses throughout the city. Many Cuencanos, especially in the outlying neighborhoods, built their homes in this style from the colonial period. The property is in the parish Ramirez Dávalos, which is just one block from the square named Miguel Moreno, which links the San Sebastián neighborhood with the plaza and parish church of the same name. Casa Sucre stands on the edge of El Centro's urban space. Mestizos, that is a person of combined European and Amerindian descent, as well as people of indigenous descent, were largely located in San Sebastián. In the 18th century, the houses in the district of San Sebastián were, like most buildings in the city, built in a very modest architectural style. A 1930 city map shows primarily single-story buildings. Even today, many houses remain in this single-story style, especially in the vicinity of the square. The Plaza de San Sebastián has been a center of activities throughout the centuries. In the 18th century, it was used as a bullring. Today, the Municipal Museum of Modern Art is the headquarters of the International Biennial of Cuenca. The Church of San Sebastián is a focal point of the neighborhood. In the late 19th century, the property on which the house is located belonged to Mrs. Rosario Naira. She specified in her will that the property was acquired with money from her natural son, Juan Antonio Naira. In 1926, the children of Juan Antonio Naira split the assets of their father. Victor Manuel Naira got the Casa Sucre property and specified that the part of the property on Sucre was a store. This information reveals that at the time there was still a small amount of construction in the area. In In 1933, Victor Manuel Naira sold the property to Dr. Carlos Aguilar Vasquez. The deed of sale describes it as a house and its adjacent garden room. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, the store was designated as one room that had access to the street and was used as a home workshop, which is unlike the strictly commercial meaning that we now use. According to testimony from the daughter of Dr. Aguilar Vasquez, he customized the house for himself after he purchased the property in 1933. When we look at the physical evidence of the house, it shows various stages of construction. The two shops facing the street Sucre and the wall that runs along the street Estevez de Terral are wider than the backroom walls. Therefore, it seems possible that these two shops were the only part of the house that was built between 1903 and 1926. The other rooms and the outer wall running along the street Estevez de Terral were customized after 1933. It is interesting that the windows on the Estevez de Terral wall were open and the eaves were added later. This indicates that it was a wall that only surrounded the property and that the back wall of the rooms that surround the courtyard were raised after 1933, which is when the house passed into the hands of Carlos Aguilar Vasquez. The house was built according to the traditional models, both in style and the materials used. Like most houses de Quincanos built in the colonial era, the house is on one level with almost no decorative elements. The doors and windows are strictly functional. The outside windows overlooking the street Estevez de Terral had small, decorative, wrought iron elements in the bottom for protection. The house was built in the same era that had French-influenced architectural works. The materials used are almost exclusively traditional, whose roots can be found in pre-Hispanic practices, techniques, and Spanish models. Adobe, a technique developed before the colony existed, was used in the walls, though a bit different than the original technique in size and composition. Up until the 20th century, the construction of Casa Sucre followed colonial traditions. The roof is composed of fired clay tiles, and adobe was used in the main walls of the house as well as the walls and floors of some rooms. Several of the interior false walls were built using a wattle and daub technique, that is, a mixture of wet soil, clay, dung, and straw smeared or daubed onto a woven lattice of reeds or wood strips. The foundations were built using the Inca construction system to square the corners and distribute the foundation load. The stones in the foundation probably came from the quarry at Pumapongo. The interior of the house is the traditional layout with rooms arranged around a central courtyard, a style that was introduced by the Spaniards in the colony. Dr. Aguilar used the back room for his library and study, while the room facing the street Sucre was used as a store. The two most influential owners of the building were Juan Antonio Naira, who began the construction, and Dr. Carlos Aguilar Vasquez, who completed it. The Andrade Argudo family owned the house from 1968 until 2008, when it was acquired by the current owners, the Delgado Guerrero family.